Welcome guys, Brandon here from Terminated Gaming, and this is the first episode in a string of episodes of my ideas of the next lines that should be added into World of Warships. These videos do not go in a specific order of release of these lines. These videos merely aim to suggest the ships I believe should be added eventually, the stats of these ships, and where they will branch off in the tech tree. So sit back and let's discuss my first suggested tech tree addition and fix, the American battleships. First, let's talk about the current tech tree for the American battleships. As we can see, the line branches off from the St. Louis at Tier 3 to the Tier 3 South Carolina. The line then continues straight up to the Colorado at Tier 7. The line splits into the Kansas and North Carolina at Tier 8 and continues to the Vermont and Montana respectively. Now, my proposed additions to the American battleship line. First, at Tier 6, we would add the USS Pennsylvania, which would have similar stats to the USS Arizona as it is in-game. Starting off with survivability, Pennsylvania will have 57,000 hit points. This is lower than the Arizona, but higher than the New Mexico, and have a 40% torpedo reduction. The same as New Mexico. Concealment will be 13.97 kilometers by sea and 8.9 kilometers by air, like Arizona. Maneuverability includes a speed of 21 knots, a turning circle radius of 640 meters, and rudder shift time of 14.6 seconds. All these values are the same as Arizona. The AA protection is exactly like Arizona as well, with a range of 4.8 kilometers, long-range DPS of 105, and short-range DPS of 91. A potential hull upgrade could be considered here to boost the AA closer to that of the New Mexico. Finally, the main battery is 4 triple 356 or 14-inch guns, 45 calibers in length with a range of 16 kilometers. The reload is 34 seconds, shorter than both the New Mexico and Arizona, and the max AP damage would be 10,300. The accuracy is characterized by 1.7 sigma and 221 meter dispersion. Next, at Tier 7, we would add the USS Tennessee, and once again a similar ship to the USS California, which is already in-game. This ship would have 58,500 hit points, which is higher than the California, but lower than the Colorado, and torpedo protection of 36%. Concealment would be 13.07 kilometers by sea and 9.5 kilometers by air, a little bit better than California. Maneuverability would start with a speed of 21 knots and a turning circle radius of 650 meters, and a rudder shift time of 14.6 seconds. AA is a direct copy of California with long-range DPS of 136.5, mid-range DPS of 364, and short-range DPS of 490. The main battery consists of 4 triple 356mm guns, or 14-inch, 50 calibers in length with a range of 20 kilometers. The reload time is 36 seconds, which is longer than both the California and Colorado, but the max AP damage is greater than California at 10,800. The accuracy is the highlight with a sigma of 1.9 and dispersion of 250. At Tier 8, we would add the USS Indiana, which would copy from the USS Alabama as in-game. The hit points are 63,500, which is better than Alabama but lower than both Kansas and the North Carolina, and would have a torpedo protection of 49%. The concealment is 15.7 kilometers by sea and 9.7 kilometers by air. Maneuverability starts with a speed of 27 knots, a turning circle radius of 700 meters, and a rudder shift time of 15 seconds. The AA defense is exactly the same as Alabama, with a long-range DPS of 175, mid-range DPS of 311.5, and short-range DPS of 367.5. The main battery includes 3 triple 406mm or 16-inch guns, 45 calibers in length with a range of 21.1 kilometers. The reload time is 30 seconds, with a max AP damage of 13,100. The accuracy is good with a sigma of 1.9 and dispersion of 280 meters. The first completely from scratch addition to the American battleships would be at Tier 9 with the USS South Dakota, the 1920s design kind of. The South Dakota would have 77,500 hit points, which is more than the Minnesota but less than the Iowa, and torpedo protection of 40%. Concealment would be 16.7 kilometers by sea and 12.5 kilometers by air, which is between Minnesota and Iowa. The ship would have a speed of 26 knots, a turning circle radius of 720 meters, and a rudder shift time of 17.8 seconds. The AA defense will be in between Iowa and Minnesota, but take Iowa's short-range DPS of 374.5, with the mid-range DPS being 450 and the long-range DPS being 160. The main battery will be 4 triple 406mm guns, or 16-inch guns, 45 calibers in length, with a range of 23 kilometers. The reload time would be 35 seconds, and the shells would have a max AP damage of 13,100. The accuracy is good, with a sigma of 1.9 and dispersion of 295 meters. Now, this is a potential add depending on how the tech tree is structured, but at Tier 8, the USS Washington is added, which would take on Design Plan B for the North Carolina. The ship would have 66,000 hit points and torpedo protection of 25%. The concealment would be 15.1 km by sea and 10 km by air. The ship would have a speed of 28 knots, a turning circle radius of 760 meters, and a rudder shift time of 15.3. The AA is the same as the current North Carolina, with long-range DPS of 171, mid-range DPS of 388.5, and the short-range DPS of 308. The main battery would consist of 4 triple 356mm or 14-inch guns, 50 calibers in length. With a range of 21 kilometers, the reload time would be 30 seconds with a max AP damage of 10,000. The accuracy would include a 1.8 sigma and dispersion of 280 meters. Now, my proposed changes to the existing ships in the line. The USS North Carolina would be moved to Tier 9, and such the stats would change. Starting with survivability, the North Carolina would have 73,000 hit points and torpedo protection of 25%. The concealment would be 15.5 km by sea and 10.5 km by air. Maneuverability starts with a speed of 28 knots, a turning circle radius of 800 meters, and a rudder shift time of 16.3 seconds. The AA defense gets beefed up to closer to what Iowa is at the tier. The long-range DPS of 175, mid-range DPS of 480, and short-range DPS of 370 will make short work of planes. The main battery would consist of 3 triple 406mm or 16-inch guns, 45 calibers in length, with a range of 23.3 kilometers. The reload time would be 30 seconds with a max AP damage of 13,100. The accuracy will be stepped up a bit from Tier 8 to a sigma of 1.85 and a dispersion of 293. The USS Iowa would make the third researchable Tier 10 American battleship, and as such, the stats would change. The Iowa would have a low hit point pool of 88,000 and torpedo protection of 25%. The concealment would be 15.7 km by sea and 11.4 km by air. The Iowa would be fast at 34 knots with a turning circle radius of 920 meters and a rudder shift time of 17.1 seconds. The AA defense are also upgraded with a range of 6 kilometers, a long-range DPS of 175, mid-range DPS of 500, and short-range DPS of 400. The main battery consists of 3 triple 406mm or 16-inch guns, 50 calibers in length, with a range of 23.35 kilometers. The reload is 28 seconds with a max AP damage of 13,500. The accuracy is better as well, with a sigma of 1.95 and a dispersion of 294 meters. So with all the ships that we've talked about, let's look at how they would be put into the tech trees. The tech tree remains the same until New York at Tier 5, at which point the line would split into the New Mexico and Pennsylvania. Starting from the Pennsylvania will lead to the Tennessee, and then on to the Vermont, just like before, through the Kansas and Minnesota. Now, the New Mexico will still lead to the Colorado at Tier 7. At the Colorado, the line splits again, potentially to the Washington and the Indiana. The Washington leads to the North Carolina, and then on to the new fast battleship Tier 10 USS Iowa. The Indiana leads to the USS South Dakota, and then to the Montana. The line could skip over the Washington at Tier 8 and potentially split at the USS Indiana, which could go to both the USS North Carolina and USS South Dakota. So now the Americans have 3 Tier 10 battleships, USS Vermont, USS Iowa, and USS Montana. All 3 would play slightly different from each other. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think of these potential changes in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Shut up and sit down.